Alrighty guys, you know what time it is. It is a Monday, which means it's mock draft Monday. We're excited to bring you a couple mock drafts today. This is our first mock draft today. We're mocking the Carolina Panthers, rounds 1 through 3. Chase, you excited?
Absolutely. Every day we get to do a mock draft is a good day.
Excellent. If you haven't seen our mock draft 1.0, check the link down in the comments. Go and check that out. We did our first round mock draft already. Now we're going to dive into the individual team mocks. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Carolina Panthers. We're going to get this pulled up here.
And unlike our mock draft 1.0, we are not changing everyone. We are a united front coming from these teams. Me and the old Garrett draft room. We're in the war room right now.
This is the war room. This is the ATF war room where we make your team better. Let's go ahead and get on the clock here. Rounds 1 through 3. So no need for any trades here. The Panthers already took care of that for us. Very kind of them.
Absolutely.
And we have the number 1 pick in the draft. Before we get started, though, Chase, take us through a pre-draft preview of the Panthers.
Absolutely. So the Panthers had some key losses. They lost in the trade wide receiver DJ Moore. They lost both of their quarterbacks. That's all three of their quarterbacks really lost one during the season in Baker, and then Sam Darnold and PJ Walker they lost, and that was really all of the losses. They didn't lose a lot of defenders, but they did gain some. They gained safety Von Bell, tight end Hayden Hurst, and then they also gained running back Miles Sanders, along with 2 wide receivers, Adam Thielen and DJ Chark.
So working hard in free agency to get better. Specifically, it looks like on the offensive side of the ball for their new rookie quarterback, giving him all the weapons that he can have to be successful. So with that pre-draft preview in mind, Chase, what would you think are the greatest needs here for the Panthers?
So I have them down as number 1 quarterback, right? They traded the Hall. They need a quarterback. I'm thinking in the second round, they're looking to, depending on how it falls, looking to either improve that defensive backfield where they kind of got picked on opposite side of J.C. Horn, or improve that wide receiver room that they did have to give up. They did increase it a little bit, but a second round wide receiver is never a bad thing. And that third round, you can never go wrong with a offensive tackle or how stacked this class is in tight end.
Well, I like it, adding a young stack tight end there with Hurst. So I like it. I agree. So let's go ahead and get started here with the first pick in the 2023 draft. The Carolina Panthers are on the clock.
Absolutely. I think this one is a simple one.
Simple, very simple, and that's obviously going to be Will Levis.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. No.
Yeah, I think C.J. Stroud's pretty much the unanimous pick as of right now. I think
so.
Me.
Yep, the most pro ready, the one that could come in, I think week 1, and you have the least amount of concerns about his game, right? With Anthony Richardson, there might be more potential, but there's a little concern. Bryce Young has better anticipation on his throws, but he's worried about getting injured, just built like that Lamar build that always kind of stays injured. So I think C.J. Stroud is the knock out of the park home run pick at number 1. I
agree. Let's go ahead and do it. Although I don't have as many concerns about Bryce Young, I think, as you do and some other people do. I still think he's a viable option at number 1. I probably would take him at number 1 if it was just me. But looking at what the Panthers are trying to build, I think C.J. Stroud is the pick right here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, we both get to decide on our 1 pick, and neither one of us are taking our quarterback 1. I think we're unanimously taking quarterback 2, right?
Yep.
That's pretty wild. Shows how good of a quarterback class this is.
Yeah, especially those top one there. So okay, so first round in the books here. So we've got our quarterback of the future. We are set up for at least the next 5 years. And so now we're on to round 2. So let's take a look at some of the options that we have here on our draft board still. What kind of position, based on how it's gone so far, Chase, are you looking at now?
I'm looking at just what the PFF shows us right there, that the first available. And although DeJuan James is a enticing pick. We just invested in offensive tackle last year in the first round. I think it'd be kind of silly to invest another offensive tackle that wouldn't get playing time on our team in the second round. So I'm thinking maybe edge here. Thinking if there's an edge that fell.
We got a couple of good edges here. So Felix Anuki-Uzuma, I think, has risen up a lot of people's draft boards based off the combine. He had a pretty good combine showing. BJ Ojulari is also a really good pick here. If I had to pick between the two personally, I think I favor a little bit more BJ. What do you think?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm not off on Felix there, but BJ is definitely my pick.
Let's go ahead and take
I liked him coming out of
LSU. Dive in deeper here. I think he's shown that he's been pretty consistent here when we're looking at his grades. But specifically, I like to look at his sacks. When I look at an edge defender, I think sacks. I mean, are you productive on getting pressures and sacks? So we're taking a look at here, and I think that he shows us that he's good. So just in 11 games played this last year, he had 9 sacks, so it's almost 1 sack a game. We're pretty good. And at his pressures. So his pressures have been pretty good throughout the last year and this year on getting pressure to the quarterback, which I think obviously when you're looking at an edge rusher, it's can you get up and pressure the quarterback, make him hurry his throws, and then even better, hit him and get him on the ground.
Absolutely. I agree that pressures are very important in the NFL.
So this is pretty good. So we'll take a look at, his first look here, just to kind of look at some different things here. So where he wins, pass rush, an answer for almost everything an offensive tackle can throw at him. I mean, that's pretty good. If you have an answer for everything, then that's pretty good. And so setting him off just to be there here in the second round, not as much is expected of him. If he was drafted in the first round, you're expecting a lot more out of him. I think, at least me personally, for my first rounders, but a second round guy that can come in here, still contribute, but the weight of the defense isn't on him, I think he'd be a good spot for him here.
Absolutely. And as much as they got picked on last year with their cornerbacks, the best way to get good coverage is to pressure the quarterback. So I think this is an overall slam run pick, kind of maybe a dream pick. Kind of hits that 240 mold that they got in Brian Burns right now. Could have coming off the other side of him. I also seen that he was a pretty decent run defender in college, which is always a plus when you get a pass rusher that's also going to defend the run.
I agree. I like BJ Liger, Chase. Let's go ahead and draft BJ. What do you think?
I'm game for it.
Game for it. You want to go ahead and make the call?
Yes. We'll send the card down right now.
All right, BJ. Welcome to Carolina. This is where it gets agonizing, where you're so early in the draft, You have to let, and then all the picks go. But here we're back to round 3 here at pick 93. All right, so we're here on our last pick of this mock draft. We're just doing the 3 rounds. So let's take stock of kind of what we've got so far. So we've got a quarterback, CJ Stroud, and we've got our defensive end in BJ from LSU. So pretty good draft so far. So now that here, looking at where the boards fall into his Chase, what are your thoughts here on addressing our last pick here in pick number 3?
So third round, you also want to kind of get a starter, right? This is still day 2. This is not a slam run, home run player, but most of the teams are built through the day 2 of the draft. So you're looking for a player that can contribute, maybe not right away, but hopefully this season. I'm thinking more cornerback or wide receiver.
Let's go ahead and take a look then here at the wide receivers to see we're here in round 3, the wide receivers that are here. So
rough.
So obviously, when you're round 3, these are going to be more you're hoping for a diamond in the rough type of thing.
Yes.
Right? So no sure thing here. The top tier wide receivers go off the board round 1, round 2. So now here, round 3 and the rest of the draft are going to be the ones that you're really not for sure, if they're going to pan out. You might have some traits you really like and think they can go in and work in the offense. and to contribute here. But looking at kind of what we have here, um, I'm not as far as spending a third round pick here. There's no one here as far as the wide receivers left that are really just screaming, pick me here with this pick. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I like some of them, like Jaden Reed. He performed at the Senior Bowl, but I don't think he would be worthy of my third round pick, especially in a wide receiver room as drastic and as kind of elder as the Panthers are right now. But I'm thinking, what about staying with a pass catcher and checking out our tight ends?
Let's do it. Let's check out the tight ends here. So still have some tight ends here. Luke Schoonmaker, Zach Kuntz, Davis Allen out of Clemson, Josh Weil out of Cincinnati. So there's some good picks here. The benefit of this is that, this is a very deep tight end draft. So we do have
Absolutely.
some quality players here in round 3. Any name here that's kind of calling out to you?
It might be an overreach, but I really like Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion. He might be one of the most athletic tight ends to come through the draft in quite some time. And I don't know if athleticism necessarily produces, but it would be interesting for a day 2 to late early day 3 pick.
Yeah, so the problem here obviously with Zach Kuntz is wasn't able to complete a full season. As you see here,
Yes.
only had 5 games, so that obviously hurts. So, looking at his most recent full season, we got to take a look at what he was able to do in 2021, I think, to give us a good understanding. So, nothing too crazy here. Obviously, stats-wise, that jump out of you. But when you're looking at I think, obviously, tight end, we got to look at, how he catches the ball. That's where the tight ends have really gone in the NFL. It's a lot less blocking and it's a lot more receiving. So to look at his receiving yards, we see, had about 700 receiving yards. So not bad at all. And especially in offense, it's Old Dominion. So it's not, throwing lights out like some of those, greater teams like Ohio State or any of the SEC teams. So
Exactly.
pretty productive, I think, for what he was asked to do in the system that he was at.
Yeah, definitely. 73 out of 112, 73 receptions at 112 targets. He's catching a lot of them that go his way, whether he's getting a lot of them thrown and a lot of them, the quarterback for Old Dominion might not be the NFL caliber that you would expect, right? So I think he produced, but I think this might be a little bit of a reach for him because I think he might be available a little bit later in the draft. But that's a name to keep an eye on for sure.
I agree. So let's take a look then. Let's go on defense. I know you had mentioned that
Absolutely.
corner was probably an area of need. So let's go ahead and take a look to see some of his corners. A very, very deep cornerback class. So a lot of names that I really like here that are still available to us here in round 3. Of these corners, I actually really liked Garrett Williams. That he's still here in round 3. To me, I really like this pick, or that he's available, I should say, here at round 3.
I do as well. I think that safety duo and of course Devon Witherspoon kind of stole a lot of his thunder with I think it was Chase Brown might be the safety, or that may be the running back. There's a safety for Syracuse that I really like, but Garrett Williams is very, very eligible for a pick here.
And so we look here, I think, to also what I kind of look at here when I'm looking at my corners. Obviously is how much touchdowns you're giving up. It's interesting because we look at especially we were looking at like Trevon Diggs a couple years ago when he was in the defensive player of the year conversations when he led the league in picks, but he also led the leagues in most yards given up. And so there's kind of a fine line that it goes with interceptions and yards. I don't personally care too much how many interceptions you have, me personally. So these numbers, of 2 interceptions, 0 interceptions that we see here aren't really concerning to me. Mine is how much yards are you giving up? How successful is the quarterback and wide receiver whenever they're attacking you specifically? And so I really like what he's been able to do here. As you can see, he got a lot better. His pass rating only allowing an 84 pass rating this past season. And so I think when you get on a team like the Panthers, teams are going to be going up against, but might not have to be that number one guy to go out there on the island. And so you're going to have help from a very good safety group. And so I think he could benefit from that as well.
Absolutely. And the other thing I like to look at as cornerbacks is how many targets you were given, right? If you were getting targeted by the opposite quarterback a ton, that kind of shows me that they didn't respect you enough, or that you were giving away a lot of your openings, right? You were open a lot, and to see that he only has 21 targets in this past year, that's pretty good for playing. He only played 7 games, but 21 targets in 7 games, that's not a laughing matter. It's about 3 targets a game. So showed that he was kind of locked down, right? The other quarterbacks didn't even want to test his coverage.
Yeah, so we kind of got some players that we like. We want to take a look at another corner, maybe Hodges Tomlinson here out of TCU.
Yeah.
Obviously Tomlinson has a namesake that goes with him. Obviously, very different positions though. Definitely not a running back. Definitely on the defensive side of the ball. But looking at what he was able to do for TCU, a team that played in the Natty, obviously no joke. It takes hard work. It takes great
Absolutely.
players to be able to make it to the Natty, getting through a team like Michigan, even playing the big team, the bigger teams that they played throughout the year in the Big 12. Definitely wasn't an easy ride for TCU, and a lot of that was because of Hodges Tomlinson here.
Yeah, and just take a peek at that. Forced interceptions, 21 forced incompletions. Sorry, not interceptions, which is first among drafting quarterbacks. That's pretty impressive right there. Shows that he's maybe not the ball hawk safety that we've seen, even though he had the same amount of picks as Garrett Williams, but he has a pass breaker up, kind of like Denzel Ward, right? That's kind of what my comp for him, a little undersized, really good, and man, gets up in the wide receiver's grill, which is not always a bad thing in the NFL.
Yeah, I really like the stats here. Forced incompletions. He was first in the entire league, first. And honestly, I'm looking at here, this passer rating, 42.5. If you look at the targets compared to receptions, the targets receptions on Williams was definitely a lot bigger than what we're seeing here with Tomlinson here, and just his passer rating was a lot lower. To me, this shows, obviously you can say that, I don't know if you want to say Big 12, Big 10 differ that much. You're more of a Big 10 guy, so you can kind of elaborate on that more. I think, Chase, about that goes. But whenever you're going up against, teams like Ohio State, Michigan, probably a little bit harder competition than anyone in the Big 12.
Yeah. I think he didn't have that luxury to play against a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young, right? So we didn't see him against elite competition, or even going up against a wide receiver like Jackson Smith-Njigba, or he didn't have to play Quentin Johnston because he was on his team, right? But I think the other thing is the Big 12 likes to pass the ball, man. Even the bad teams in there can air it out. They got that air raid offense. It seems like all of them do. Even Kansas this year was just guns a-blazing, throwing it down the field. And to show that he had that many incompletions, and he allowed that little targets on all of those, or that little receptions on all of those passes, because that's why his target number is so much higher, because these teams in the Big 12 tend to lean towards the pass a lot more than the run.
Yeah, but that wide margin of 81-28. Honestly, I'm talking myself into taking Tomlinson here. I'm really feeling it, Chase. I'm really feeling it.
I'm okay with that. I really like Tomlinson, right? He got that namesake, another TCU Tomlinson in the league. I mean, completely different, as we already discussed, but I really like that, right? And he doesn't have to come in. The Panthers already have a top 10 cornerback in J.C. Horn, right? Kind of busted out of his shell this year. He looked amazing, unstoppable at times. So he didn't have to come in and be the number one. And I think Tomlinson maybe has the potential to do that later down the road. So it'd be a brutal pairing of them two. I'm for that Tomlinson pick.
All right, let's go ahead and do it. For our third and last pick, we're going to take Trevius Hodges Tomlinson. And here we go. So this is going to be the PFF rankings. So first round pick, CJ Stroud, quarterback of the future, A+. Round 2, Perfect. BJ Ojulari, A. And then third round, cornerback Trevius Hodges Tomlinson, B+, for an overall draft grade of an A. Chase, what are your thoughts?
I really like this draft. I think this would be a pretty good draft for the Panthers. Securing their quarterback number 1 is the easy pick, but getting an pretty decent edge defender there to come off and rush the passer, and then getting a guy to kind of soul him up that defense so that way CJ Stroud doesn't have to go out and score 40 points a game to win a game. And a very weak division, I think this would be a perfect first 3 rounds for the Carolina Panthers.
I agree. I don't think, obviously, the Panthers obviously might value position-wise some different players than we did. But I think as far as their team needs and as far as this draft board fell, I think these picks are right where they needed to be. And I think with these picks, it helps set them up, obviously, not only for this year, but really well in the future, especially if we're comparing kind of that division. The NFC South obviously has turned into one of the worst divisions in football. It will be interesting to see, how long it takes for that to change. And the NFC East had that for a long time. Now it looks like it's the NFC South. We'll see if this is, what's going to take the Panthers up, up another notch. So they were in playoff contention this past year, even being how horrible they were, just because of the nature of that division. So I think something like this, especially nailing your quarterback of the future, I think just cannot be more important. I think obviously they traded up in order to do that, and Stroud is the guy that can lead them to the promised land.
Absolutely, yep, and especially getting this draft board after giving up a couple of picks, right, and getting that trade to move up to get Stroud, and still getting a draft that comes out to an A with all three picks in the first 3 rounds. I think this would be a knock out of the park off season, accompanied with the free agency coming in for the Carolina Panthers.
I like it. Well, Panthers fan and anyone else, if you're seeing this, go ahead and drop in the comments your thoughts on our draft, who we picked, if you agree, if we should have went with someone else. Let us hear your analysis on how you can make the Panthers better. This was ours. We look forward to bringing you some more individual mock drafts, so stay tuned. This was All Things Football.